So, moin! This video is part of the Scientific Python Programming lecture at the University of Bremen. And in this session, we would like to have a look at command line parsing in Python. So basically, up to now, we have developed our linear solver toolchain toy package so far that we have now a command line tool which can basically solve a linear system of equations. And it would be good if we could extend it and basically just configure and modify the behavior of the code of our package or executable by using command line arguments. As always, you find the slides at the usual place at the BCCMS website, at the website of the course here. And this is lecture number 10, and it will cover different topics. And the first one is the command line argument parsing, which we are doing now. And of course, as always, we are using our Ubuntu framework in order to do the exercises. So please start it, and then you can follow the exercises live and just basically type whatever I am typing. So basically, yes, the first topic is the command line argument parsing, and basically what we would like to achieve is what you know already from Unix. I mean, you remember we have, for example, the program ls, which would basically just list all the files, but you can also pass a special argument to ls if you want just to list a given file of a given directory. So basically, instead of ls, I could just ask ls downloads or ls desktop or whatever in order to list whatever is there. And I can also, if I'm just doing ls, I can also modify how the ls command works, not just by specifying on which files it should act, but also what kind of information it should show me. So basically, I could just say ls minus all, which would basically also, as you know, would also show the dotted entries, the hidden files, but also the same if I just would pick ls minus a. This is exactly the same effect. The same, I could just say ls minus a minus l or minus long for the long format. No, you see that it's not minus l, it's not long, but something else, which we could, of course, look up in the manual and look. And what's the alternative of minus l? And basically, if you look for that, you would see that there isn't any alternative. So this has not a long name. But as you see in the manual, there are several options which have short names and long names. So basically, you hear minus capital L and minus dereference would be equivalent, or minus capital N and minus numeric UIT git. So basically, it's very common for several of the options, but not for all of them. It depends, of course, on the author of the program to provide long and short options as well. And just to distinguish the things which we have to specify, the arguments which are starting with a dash or a double dash are usually called options, because usually they are optional and they are just modifying the behavior of the code, but it doesn't really modify what the code acts on. And so basically minus L would be an optional argument. If I'm just specifying, for example, a folder, that I have one folder, that will be a so-called positional argument. It doesn't start with dash, and very often the position argument, it's quite common in Unix, is some kind of file or directory entry. And basically what we would like to achieve is we had this linsolve project, and what we would like to achieve is to make sure that this linsolver can also accept command line arguments. And basically what I would like to show you in this video, how you can set it up. I will not do it on the linsolve project itself. That's something you can do as an exercise. I will just define a toy project and show you there how you can parse command line options. For that, I have already started here the Spider-Free editor or environment, graphical environment, and I created a command line args project. And basically in this command line args project, I will just create a new file. Let's call it something useful, let's say argdemo, right? We can just call it argdemo, and .py. This will be basically a Python file, or maybe even better, I will just leave away the .py because we want to execute from the command line and we don't want to know whether it is written on Python or not. Of course, then I have to tell the system that it's if this is executed, it should be executed by Python. So basically, I will make this special comment, which we already discussed a lot, basically calling the environmental program and passing the environment program Python 3 interpreter, and then whatever follows here will be basically parsed in Python. Now I will just close it and open it again, because now then Spider recognized that that should be a Python file. And basically the exercise would be, the goal of the exercise is that if we are just going into that folder, I'm developing that in the folder command line args, and then here you have args demo, and I will just now change the executable flag of arg demo to +x so that it's executable arg demo, and then theoretically I'm able to run it. It's all fine, but the point would be that basically I can also pass different options, and this arg demo should behave differently if I'm passing different options. For example, if I'm passing the -h option, the help option, it should show some help. I should be able to pass certain options, but if I pass an option which is not allowed, it should stop and give an error message. And the good thing is that's quite easy to achieve in Python, and basically the key to that is a so-called command line package. Or the command line package is so-called argparse package. And basically here, if you look at the slides, you see that it's very, very simple what we want to achieve, just a few lines in Python. And I would like to go through these through lines, or line by line, and basically implement it. So as you see, the first thing which we need is import the so-called argparse module. This contains this functionality. So let's do that. Of course, before we import anything which is missing, in order to make Bálint and all the Python checker tools happy, and also in order to give a glimpse to the reader what this module is supposed to do, we are just writing a docstring, and this docstring, okay, this is a demonstration of the usage of Python command line parsing. Okay, so we have documented our project, as you know, and here we are importing argparse. You can ask why is this thing here? Because it was imported. Argparse is bang because argparse was imported but not used yet, but we will do that in a minute. Let's write the description of the tool which we want to write. We will need it in a second, but I would like just already do it right here as a constant. You remember, we will discuss this in the next session a little bit more in detail. If you start something with an underscore, this usually means that it's a kind of private to this module. And then basically here, as you see here, we are just writing nothing else, just a short description. So basically this is a toy script demonstrating argparse capabilities. Okay, and now let's start with what we want to do at the end, and this is basically write a command line parser. So we will just basically define a variable, let's call it parser, and we have to use, as you see here, the argparse.argument parser object. And this object usually you should initialize with description. So basically this is the description which it will show to the user if he wants to know something about what this script does. So basically we will say, okay, let's call it parser is equal. In contrast to the example, which is very simple in the script, we know that it's not very nice okay. So first let's just do it. So basically we are just calling argparse, and then the object argument parser. And what is this argument parser? We have to just pass the flag description, and then even just what we have here, the constant description. Okay. No, this thing is not very happy because I was just mistyping it. So basically argparse, and this is imported here, so it's quite fine. The only thing is, you remember that if you would run Bálint on top of that, it would not be very happy. We can just test it. So basically, already at this very, very beginning, we have only a few lines, but we can already have a static code analysis and see whether here anything interesting happens, and running Bálint over that. And let's see what happens. So here, this is the window where it should happen. And if I'm just doing clicking here on analyze, I have already something, and here exactly constant name parser doesn't conform to the convention. And just you remember, why does it assume that it's a constant? Because it's outside of any kind of routines. So basically, if you would import this thing as a module, this would be executed, and this is not something which would happen. So we will just basically do nothing else than here putting it into the main routine, and then we will basically say, in order to be able to execute it, that if the name variable, the special dash name dash the underscore name underscore variable has the name, the special name main, that means Python tells us this way that this script has been executed from the command line, and then it should execute the routine main. Okay, so that sounds already quite good. You here see still something complained. Okay, where you have one more blank line, we can just remove it. It's not very complicated. And here the problem is, what is the problem? First of all, it usually expects 2 empty lines. That's easy to satisfy. And here we didn't use parser yet. And basically the argument parser is something you create, and then you tell the argument parser to parse the command lines. And if you look at the example on the slides, then you see that this is here, this line here, which says args is parser.parse args. Okay, so let's just use args as parser dot, and here now it's also executed parse args. Okay, and then of course it will complain that args is not used, but we can just, let's say, print args. Okay, and then basically we have the first version of our code. We are just here initializing an argument parser. We are telling the argument parser to parse the command line arguments, and then just printing whatever it obtained. And now I would suggest we just try to see what happens if we run it. So we are just playing argdemo, and okay, we get a namespace object. This is not very exciting. We will see later how to deal with that. But for example, if I'm doing argdemo -h, it already does something useful. It prints a help with all the options which I can use, and then basically this is exactly the text which I was passing as a description. So basically this header for the help is exactly the description which we passed, and here we see that we have at least one optional argument, the -h, or even the --help. This is the same, this is equivalent, which would just show this help information. So that's already something, and basically with very few lines of code, we already achieved that the command line arguments can be parsed and a help page can be shown. Now let's try to pass an option like -l, and you see that it doesn't work. I cannot pass arbitrary options anymore because it says unrecognized arguments -l, because I didn't specify that the argument -l can be used. And this is also an additional capability of argparser, which means it checks whether the options which had been passed, positional or optional arguments, whether they are allowed or not. And if you pass something which was not explicitly allowed, it will stop. So basically it keeps the user for passing an argument which is not valid and thinking that it achieves something, but it does not, because the program doesn't recognize it, because it stops immediately with an error message. So basically now our task would be just to populate this argument parser to add all the informations which we need. So basically all the options which we want to allow for. And this is exactly also not very complicated. You can see it, you can add it with the parser.addArgument option or method. So that basically the add argument method of the parser. And then here you see you are specifying the name of the option, for example -d if it's a position, if it's an optional argument, not a positional one, an optional one. Or you can also specify an alternative name, a long name. This is a long option with ---- directory. And you can also specify a default value. Let's say we want to ask for a specific directory, and if the user does not specify anything, it should be the default directory, which means like a dot. And you can also give a help message for this special option, and either you write it here as a string, or it's usually cleaner to define a variable before with the string, because string may be longer and maybe you need line breaks, and it's nicer to write it before that. So let's do that. Let's add this -d or directory option to our script here. So basically we will just say we have now here the parser, and before we let the parser parse the command line arguments, we are just populating the parser. So basically we were using the add argument function, and then let's say that was the option -d and the option minus the long form minus directory, and we are specifying a default which should be dot, and we are specifying a help which should be a given message, and this message should be directory to act on. Okay, good. So let's see now what happens if we are executing the script. We can just first try the test with the help page, and you see that indeed here in the automatically formatted help, basically it shows now the directory, the option -d, the minus directory. It passes here. It basically says, okay, you have to specify here the directory. Where does the name directory comes from? The name directory comes from, of course, the name of the variable, basically the name of the long here, name of the long option default. So this is where the name directory comes from. If you find it a little bit too long, you can also abbreviate it with a different name. So it's also possible basically only to have the option minus directory, but having the variable dir, for example, here shown in the help. So there are various ways how you can do that. Okay, and then basically that means that if I'm making just argdemo, then you see that I'm get a namespace object. We will see in a second how we can access things in the namespace object. But what you will see here that I have now an entry directory which is equal to dot, because I didn't specify anything. So it was taking the default value which was dot, and I could just say, okay, let's take /home instead. And then, of course, it was not accepted because it was a position argument, and we did not allow for any position argument. But if I'm writing the -d in front, then I have, you see, the directory /home/ instead. So basically that seems to work also quite well. Okay, so basically that's one thing. This directory which I'm passing is just a string, and it will just be stored. Now, very often you need, or your program needs, arguments which are, for example, integers, and it would be nice if this package would automatically check right at the beginning whether the type which the user provided is indeed an integer and not just mistype something. The nice thing is that this is something also you can do very easily with argparse. So let's make the next example, adding an argument which expects an integer. And here I did it in the following way. I was adding it a positional argument number. How do we know that it's a position argument? We know it's a positional argument because it doesn't have a dash in front. Although I could also specify it as an optional argument, it doesn't make any difference. And interesting thing here is that I was specifying here the type of being int, right? So basically here I have the type integer. So basically then we hope that argparse will check whether that's indeed an integer. And I have also done here another thing is the metavar setting to num, and this is exactly what I discussed before. If you want in the help to have the argument called something shorter than the name which is derived from the name of the argument, then you can specify the so-called metavar. But let's just do that in our toy script. So basically what we will do now is adding another argument. Again, I'm just defining the message, the argument message in advance. So basically, let's say an arbitrary integer number. That will be the message, and then we are just basically add argument, and then we have different options that specify just as the number. So basically this doesn't have a dash or a minus dash, so it will be automatically a positional argument, and then we say type equal int, and there we do not specify default. That means you have to specify, so it's a required positional argument in this type, and help should be message. So let's try whether what it gives us if we are just getting the help page of our script. Then you see that here the name number appeared, right? And then I have a position argument called number, where the help text is exactly the one I specified. Okay, and now let's try to execute argdemo without any arguments, and that does not work anymore. Why? Because the following arguments are required numbers. So basically that means I had a positional argument which was a compulsory positional argument because I didn't provide any default value, and therefore it must be present. And if the user doesn't specify it, then argparse would complain about that. Now let's add this one thing which I had on the slide, this metavar keyword argument here. So we are saying metavar is equal num, and let's have a look what happens then. If I'm just getting the help, then you see that basically the name which appears here has been changed. So here it's referred as num, and I will do the same for the directory because I find here this directory, this string too long. So let's just abbreviate it in the help as dir. So basically here we will say metavar is equal dir, right? So basically I just go and then the line is then too long. So let's just break it accordingly. And now let's have a look on the test page, and then you see now it just says dir instead of directory, and num stays as it is. And then if I'm just specifying, for example, the 9, then indeed the directory was stored. This was an optional, and we had a default value which was dot. So it's I didn't specify this option, so the dot is here, and the number here was set to 9 because I specified the 9. Now if I just try to specify, let's say, something which cannot be converted to an integer, then basically I would get an error message. And yeah, that's basically is. So basically it will check whether it can be converted to integer. If you try to specify a float, again it will make sure that it's a proper integer, right? But if I'm specifying something like -1, then it's indeed implemented or interpreted as -1. So that seems to work quite well. And with that, basically, we went through the lines of this very, very simple example. The only thing is now to clear, okay, that's fine. Now you have parsed the command line arguments, but how can you query basically the command line arguments after they has been parsed and type checked? And of course that you can do by directly accessing this object, this args object. And basically this is a so-called namespace object, but the name is not really relevant. The relevant information is that you can basically with dot and the name of the field just access them directly. So if we wanted to print out what we received here as an argument, so instead of just printing the namespace object, I would just say we're just printing the directory. Let's just make a format string, and what I would do is here pass args dot directory, and let's also print the value of the positional required argument, so number, and this will be an integer, and that's formatted. And again we are just passing args dot, and instead of directory we have here we call it number, right? And then this one we can just leave away. Okay, so let's have a look at that, what happens. And if I'm passing -1 to argsdemo, it will just print the directory and the number -1. If I'm specifying a different directory, then it will be accordingly changed, or if I'm using the -d option, then it will also behave the same way. So basically with that we managed to go through this example, and basically this is the way how you can treat the command line arguments in Python. This argparse package is incredibly powerful, so you can do a lot of things with that. And we just here scratched the surface of the possible features. And what I would like to ask you is to have a look. There's a very good argparse tutorial on the Python website, and there you can learn all further tricks which can be very useful if you want to make command line parsing. But I think with the video which I have shown you, you have the very basics, so you can start to convert your scripts, command line scripts, into ones which can read and accept command line arguments. Good. With that, thanks a lot for your attention, and I hope to see you at the next session. Take care. Bye bye.